Well, earlier this week, a St. Mary's School Waverley sent a letter to parents and guardians proposing a complete ban on cell phones for senior school students. This move has sparked a debate amongst the parents as well as educators alike, raising questions about the impact on learning, safety and social development. Joining us now is Kate Farina, founder of Be In Touch, an organization that works on digital wellness for parents and children, to share their insights on the potential benefits and drawbacks of a complete cell phone ban in schools. Kate, a very good morning to you. Thank you so much for making time for us. And I understand that your daughter also attends St. Mary's Waverley School. But I want to know from your point of view, what is it that you've observed, perhaps maybe in the behavior of your child as well as her peers, around when it comes to learning and teaching, the impact that smartphones have on that?
Good morning, and thank you, Elgin. And yes, my daughter just started at St. Mary's in grade 8, so I'm really looking forward to this phone-free journey that we're going to have at high school. And I have an eldest son, grade 11, and his school also last year decided to go phone-free. So we've been, monitoring this ride. I think it's got huge benefits in the work that I do. Both at Be In Touch, and I'm involved in the South African chapter of the global smartphone free childhood movement, a parent-led movement, which is responding to the huge global shift we've seen last year around helping our teens, helping to decrease the effects on their mental health of being on their screens for 7 to 9 hours a day for non-educational reasons. So I think getting our kids off their phones, from under their desks, off social media during school time, and allowing them that opportunity for huge beneficial interpersonal skills is massively important for this generation.
Yeah. Outside of the destructive nature that may come from using a cell phone during a period of learning and teaching, what else can be said about the prevalence of having cell phones in schools and the impact that has on the child's psychology?
Well, UNESCO has done a study, and they're actually called for a global ban on smartphones in schools worldwide. We've got a number of countries which have taken this up in national legislation because they have looked at the research around the distraction factor and, of course, the other issues that cell phones bring to schools, like cyberbullying and, being able to film each other and teachers at school. So there are huge benefits to giving our children a distraction-free learning environment, letting teachers teach and letting children learn.
Yeah, and speak to us about the anxieties, the cyberbullying, and the cyberbullying, of course, that we know happens, whether it is during learning and teaching time or whether the child could be at home.
Yeah, so Dr. Jonathan Haidt last year published a bestseller really referring to what's happening to what he's calling the anxious generation of being online these last 14 years. And just, I think, showing us the effects of huge levels of anxiety and depression, particularly on our girls, on our boys, huge levels of addiction to gaming, to online pornography. And that these are very real issues that are affecting how our children are growing up and whether, in fact, they are able to become fully functional adults, which is what every parent wants for their child.
Yeah, citing that UNESCO report as well, it says that based on their analysis, around 200 education systems around the world, UNESCO estimated that 1 in 4 of the countries have banned smartphones in school. Why should South Africa join this list as well? I know that you initiated a petition as well, calling on the Basic Education Minister to initiate legislation that looks into banning cell phones in schools.
Yes, and I think that this is something that we would love to see at a national level, because I think it makes it so much easier for schools to be able to pivot towards that. Whether you have to then consult with an SGB or a board to do this, currently it would make it just so much easier. It's in our perspective, a no-brainer to move towards this and to give, at least for the academic day, let's say 7:30 till 2:30, give our children that break, to be able to be off their phones, be off social media, off YouTube, and plugged into what we are all wanting is a good education system for our country.
Yeah, so is it your proposal that it should be a complete ban of cell phones during schooling hours, or perhaps maybe looking at what China is doing? And according to that article in The Guardian, citing that China which has also set boundaries for the use of digital devices as teaching tools, limiting them to 30% of all teaching time, with students expected to take regular screen breaks in between. So not an entire ban, but it's just saying that we need to limit it.
Well, as parents have jumped on board with what the smartphone-free childhood movement is promoting, which is to delay giving your children smartphones until high school and to support phone-free schools, of course, this question comes up, and that's the dilemma of the tablet or the use of the iPad or the use of tech in education, and particularly in primary schools, because where schools are requiring parents to buy iPads or tablets for their children from as young as grade 4 or grade 5. Parents are saying, but I've tried to delay giving my child a smartphone, and now this smart device, which is really a very large smartphone, it's nothing more than that, is now coming home, and I have to try and manage this myself, and I don't want to, I don't have the tools, I don't have the ability, I don't have the time. So the use of tech in education is a very hot topic at the moment. And really the discussion is around how it can be used mindfully, carefully, well managed, and especially if you're looking at something like an iPad or a tablet, that it's used as an educational tool only, like an electronic textbook, that we manage it and we lock it down for that it's not used then for entertainment purposes as well, and becomes the parent's problem after school.
Yeah. Now, how then do you ensure, considering that you have the shift towards the digital economy and also the advent of artificial intelligence, that such a policy does not become regressive, where the children are then left behind from their peers globally in terms of the ability of what they can do on their cell phones, and that being taught at school as well?
Absolutely, and different schools have different tech. Some have computer rooms where children go and learn coding. They're integrating AI, they're integrating all the wonderful opportunities that tech has in education. And others, of course, have mobile devices like tablets, which they require parents to buy. So different schools have different approaches. And we are definitely not anti-tech, but we are about slow tech and mindful tech. And that we need to be careful about the checks and balances we're putting in place and how we are managing these devices so that our children are not exposed too early at all to inappropriate content, and whether it's at school or at home, and it's being driven by the educational platforms.
Yeah, and isn't that it? How do you deal with the issue around the inappropriate content that children would have access to while using their phones? Rather deal with that particular aspect and not necessarily say, let's have a complete ban of cell phones.
So we're not saying a complete ban of cell phones. For parents, we are promoting a delay of smartphones until high school. And within schools themselves, we're saying if children need their cell phones either to get to school, for transport, that we have places, secure places that they can lock them up, and that they're away for the day, that they're not accessible for the day, and that there is other tech that they can use or that they can access in order to supplement the learning process. But phones themselves, parents find very difficult to monitor, to put the filters on, to put the parental controls. It's a big job of the modern parent, but it's also a very hard job. And we need to be realistic of that not all parents can manage this job adequately. And of course, if children are coming to school with smartphones that have unfiltered access to the internet, they're going to be sharing that.
Yeah. What do you say to parents who disagree and say that my child needs to have a cell phone in case of an emergency? My child must be able to get in touch with me, or I must be able to get in touch with my child.
This is part of the practicalities that schools are having to relook and make available resources, for example, at the admin office, both for parents to be able to call in and send messages to their children, or for parents to be able to contact their children to be able to contact their parents. I think the headmistress of St. Mary's, in her interview a couple of days ago, spoke very eloquently around the fact that we don't always in schools want parents to be able to contact their children immediately in an emergency, because you may need some support for that child. They don't necessarily need to hear immediately during a maths lesson that a family member is in crisis. So you want to have a more structured approach in any event to emergencies where that learner can be better supported.
Yeah. And since this petition that you've initiated, have you had any responses yet from the Basic Education Department?
We haven't yet, but we are busy looking and planning on how we can make a more formal approach to government around this, and to enter into some discussions around why we think this policy is an important one for the country. And of course, the next step after that will be looking at our country's position on social media after the route that Australia has recently taken with a minimum age restriction of 16. And this is going to be something that many other countries around the world are going to start looking at too. So these are the approaches that we'd like to take to government and to start having discussions about that with the bigger view and the impact of a better mental health for this next generation of children.
Well, Brazil, which is a BRICS partner, has also now joined the list of countries that are banning cell phones in schools. But I just quickly want to hear your analysis, Kate, on the poll that we are running today. So we're asking our viewers, should smartphones be banned in schools? And I just quickly want to bring up the results. The results so far. 77% of the people who've participated are saying yes, and no 7%, and limit the use at 16%. Does this surprise you at all, or just vindicates the point that you've been raising?
I think it's wonderful. I think in the last year, our consciousness as parents has grown as this research is coming out about what's happened in the last 14 years since the advent of the smart device, and since these devices could host ever increasing and ever smarter apps and games. And I think it shows that parents are really worried about their children. And I think this is fantastic. I would respond to the percentage that is saying that it should be managed within schools. I think there's a lot of research around the fact that the mere presence of a smartphone, so whether it's in their pocket switched off or in their suitcase or in somewhere in a pouch in the classroom, that can still significantly impact cognitive capacity and function, because we are still subconsciously going to that device and wondering what's happened, what's happening with all our Snapchat notifications and the TikToks and the Instagram DMs. So even though phones are not actively being used, they can still be a distraction. And that's why we really support the schools that are starting the school day with phones being locked away in lockers in a common area, and they are picked up again at the end of the academic day.
Well, for parents and SGB members who'd like to explore this policy, how can they get in touch with you and seeing perhaps maybe how you can give them advice around how they can go around the policy and introduction of such a policy in the meantime, while we wait on basic education and whether or not they will be introducing such legislation?
Absolutely. Welcome to reach out to me to kate@beinTouch.org.za. And I can connect you with other schools that have gone this route. I can give you a better idea of some of the practicalities that you've got to think about. Because, of course, it's one thing creating a policy, but it's another thing implementing it. And the practicalities really are around lockers, around, what happens to transgressions, how are you going to communicate with children during the day, perhaps on digital screens. So there's a lot of things to think about when you move to a policy like this. But it's wonderful. I'm seeing the effects already in many of the schools that I'm working with, and the children feel lighter, and so do the staff, because they're actually able to teach instead of saying, put your phone away, put your phone away.
Yeah, but sometimes it's the teachers who actually get them to do TikTok challenges and so forth. So we need to deal with that aspect as well. But thank you so much, Kate, for making time for us.